boys and girls, students of Buddhist Sunday School and Dhamma classes, parents, grandparents, and teachers of Buddhist Sunday School and Dhamma classes. May you all be well, happy, and peaceful. We're going to have a presentation on a story that teaches good Dharma or life lessons. And the title of the story is The King with the Missing Toe, a story for reflection. The texts of this presentation are in English and Malay, but the narration with the explanation are in English. Now, we are going to go over the slides for the presentation. I'll narrate the story and explain and comment on each slide. And at the end, we come to the most important slide, and that is to learn some very important Dharma lessons. Now, as usual, we are going to show you the PowerPoint presentation. But before that, let me check the setup to make sure that it is correct. It's all right, the setup. So now let us launch the PowerPoint for the story. Now you see the title slide, and this is what we call a washout, to make it not so clear, but later on when you have the slides in the story, they will be very, very clear. Now, as I've told you, the title is The King with a Missing Toe. That is an animated image of a king in India a long time ago. And here I show you what is meant by a toe. Actually, each of our feet has 5 toes, isn't it? Just as the hand has 5 fingers. Now, you can read for yourself later the text in Malay. So now let us go to the start of the story. Once upon a time, there was a king. He had a minister. The minister was very wise. Now, those days, in the king's or the emperor's court, there will be ministers, and there will be one who can be regarded as the chief minister, and he will always accompany the king to give the advice or to answer the king's questions whenever there are problems. So there was this king, and you can see the picture or the image, and the minister, I can see here, also very wise minister, very wise minister. So, but this minister, often used to say, whatever happens, happens for good. Oh, very wise type of saying, it's a very sort of common saying in English, that whatever event or happening or thing that happens to you, look on the positive side. There is good behind the happening. Or there is an English proverb that says there's a silver lining in every cloud or something like that, right? Well, there is a blessing also in that event, even though it appears bad. But we'll discuss that more later. Now, one day or once, the king was cleaning his sword. Now, those days, the kings would have, no guns, right? They would have knives and swords. And many kings also would go to fight in battles and wars. And they would use things like bow and arrows and swords. So very, very valuable, precious to the king, So one day, the king, very, very sharp sword, So he was cleaning it, polishing it, oiling it. And there was this minister who was nearby, was probably sitting or even standing next to him now. So suddenly, the king, maybe not mindful enough, dropped the sword, right? So dropped the sword from a height lah. And the sword fell on the king's feet, right? King's feet. So it so happened, right? Very, very sharp sword cut off one of his toes, in the foot, that you can see here. Of course, this is just a story, lah, right? In actual fact, he might just hurt the foot, isn't it? But this is just a story. But anyway, the sword was very, very sharp. Or you could also picture another scenario. The king was using the sword and trying to, swirl here and there to practice like that, and accidentally cut his toe off. I mean, it doesn't matter, but important thing is the toe was cut off. Then the minister saw it. And of course, the minister asked, the physicians or doctors in the court to come to tend to the cut off toe already, like amputated already, right? Then the minister said, whatever happens, happens for good. That was his favorite saying. Whatever happens, happens for good, right? So the king, of course, lost the toe, It's just a story, But anyway, did not die, right? So the doctors in the court tended to the toe, and that was that. Now, let us see what happened to the king on hearing the minister saying, whatever happens, happens for good. So that is this very important statement. Now, let us go on to slide number 3. Now, slide number 3, let's continue the story before I comment and explain. The king was very angry on hearing this. He scolded the minister. My toe is cut off, and you are saying that it has happened for good. What good is it? Wow, the king, of course, he was standard 2 already. He was still very angry hearing what the minister said, Whatever happens, happens for good. He said, you have seen my toe hurt so badly until the toe was cut off and amputated. So now you say whatever happens, happens for good. How can you say it's good when I've lost a toe? It's so terrible. What sort of words you are uttering? So the king got very angry and he ordered the minister to be imprisoned in jail. The king, he just had to give the command. He called guards or soldiers. Take this person, stupid person, and put him in jail. He was very, very angry, But the minister did not react in a shocked manner or in anger. The minister did not feel any sorrow, as he was escorted by the guards or the soldiers to the jail. He still very, very cheerfully said, whatever happens, happens for good. So you can see this as he was going to the jail. In the palace ground, there would also be jails. The king could put anybody very powerful king. During that time was like that. They don't have like a court where you have the judges, the lawyers, and so on. So the king was the judge, the lawyer, and also the jailer. So he was so angry to that extent. So this picture shows you the sequence. The angry king sentence, or asked that the minister be put in jail, and the minister on the way still said whatever happens, happens for good. And now he's in the jail, right in the jail. So that is slide number 3. So now let us go on to slide number 4. The king was amazed to hear this. He thought to himself, how strange my minister is. He's going to jail, and yet he's still saying whatever happens, happens for good. He's not in the least sorrowful. He's not sorrowful at all. He's not frightened. He's not worried. He still accepts it so peacefully. Wow, remarkable man. But after you see the ending of the story, what happens? So the king was very shocked and surprised to hear the minister saying, whatever happens, happens for good, even though he was going to jail, isn't it? Most people will, have a very sad look, very disappointed, or all the negative emotions, and the words would come maybe in a negative way. But this one, he just said, whatever happens, happens for good. The king was very surprised. He was wondering, why is it like that? But anyway, he did not understand, so he just left it. So then 2 months later, the wound where the toe was already healed already. So it was okay lah. You only have 4 toes on one of the feet lah. He only had 4 toes on one of the feet, whereas the other foot has 5 toes, including the biggest toe lah, right? So 2 months passed after this incident. And one day, the king went for hunting with his soldiers. Those days, kings and emperors alike, to go hunting. And today also, you have in some of the countries, like maybe England, the king also maybe had a hobby to go for hunting. And today also, you have many people, big shots lah, not so big shots lah, also go for hunting. Basically, hobby, to have the fun and the thrill, not so much to get the food. You could get food elsewhere. So that was the hobby. And Buddhists don't encourage this hobby because hunting causes suffering to the animals. Imagine if the mother deer or the mother boar, wild boar, hunted. So terrible, isn't it? Being chased with great fear or being killed. So imagine if you are hunted by somebody, a mad person, you have to run for your life. You'll be so very scared, isn't it? So very fearful. And then if you are killed, just as if the animal were killed, the baby deer or the baby monkey and so on will be crying, and the mother killed already. So it's terrible. So we don't encourage. But anyway, that's the way things are. There are people who don't believe this, and they just want to have the fun. So the king went hunting. Of course, he didn't go alone. Right? He had some soldiers escorting him. So riding on their horses, they all went into the dense forest, the thick forest, many, many trees and bushes and all those things. Quite a maybe big forest. Still in the kingdom of this king, the kingdom, the country. So what happens? Now, of course, here, just to show you, the king, he would use the sword. But actually, normally when they, in this situation, they would come also with their arrows, right? Bows and arrows. Actually, we don't have guns during that time. So they would use the bows and arrows to shoot at the animals. Then after that, if the animal is not dead yet, then you use the sword and cut off the fur or something like that. Right. Anyway, this is just a picture. Now let us go on to slide number 5. This is slide number 5. Let's see what it's about. The king, while chasing a deer, went deeper into the forest and got separated from his soldiers. Now, one of the animals commonly being hunted, the deer, right? Of course, you have monkeys and then even birds also, and then wild boars and other animals. So the king was so engrossed, so he kept on, going faster and faster in the horse. And there was this deer. He chased the deer in order to, maybe he was thinking he could come near it and then use a sword and kill it. Or sometimes at a distance, they would use bow and arrow, one of these ways. Or sometimes they use even a spear, a spear. So he could not catch the deer. And at last, the king had lost his way. Wow. He also engrossed, so he got separated from the soldiers, so he was alone already. In the thick forest. He was lost already. He didn't know the way already. He was chasing the deer, and then the deer just went out. So he was lost in the dense forest. Then the king, of course, he couldn't get at the deer. The deer could run very, very fast. You can see the animated image here. So when the king realized, oh, I it, man, I don't know how to go back, I've lost my way because he was too excited. Then he probably will slowly find his way back. But now in the midst or in the middle of the forest already. He started to look for a way out of the forest. And suddenly the king was surrounded by a group of tribal men living in that forest. Now, tribal men, just as you have a lot of people called Sakai last time, but actually they belong to certain tribes. And some of these tribes are cannibals. Cannibals means they eat human flesh, but not this tribe. But they practice, just as now we have the Aborigines are in Orang Asli, live in the forest, but Orang Asli, they are very peaceful and harmless people. But some of these tribes can be very violent, aggressive, and will fight, So these tribal people, wow, now you can see here, right? Some of them are naked. Some will just wear the loincloths. And these tribal men, they were not citizens of the king's kingdom, even though they was living in that country, in the forest. But they just living in the forest. No citizenship. And they did not even recognize the king. They wouldn't even know. They had not even seen the king. Right? So that was the situation. So you can see these three pictures that tell you the king got lost when he tried to chase the deer. And then after that, he was surrounded already. Very suddenly, the tribal men surrounded him already. Actually, they wanted to capture him already. So let us see now. Did the king die? So you have to follow the story. Now we go on to slide number 6 now. So as I say, the tribal man captured the king and took him to their village in the forest. So the tribal people also live in a community, maybe like a kampong also, but in the deep jungle. Hardly anybody would go there, and hardly anybody would go. So they survive by just hunting. Hunting, and they live the type of life. Where you don't have like what you have the schools or entertainment and so on. So there was this. And those tribal men, why did they capture the king? Those tribal men were looking for a human whom they could kill and sacrifice to appease their deity or God. Now we see they do not have the religions that you have now, Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism. They believe in certain sort of, or you can say, cultish religions, superstitious beliefs, right? They did not have the organized religions that we have now. And one of the beliefs was among these people, and then there were other tribes in other civilizations also, they believe that to please their God, when they, see the lightning on thunder, they believe that it's due to their God or deity, or you can say God. So they have always to please the God, so that the God would not harm them or cause terrible thunderstorms, or they believe in that, So they have to sacrifice to please their God. And today, you still have, certain practices like this, even though not publicized. In maybe certain remote areas or jungles. And today there are some that probably might catch children and sacrifice to certain gods or spirits, they call it spirits, in order to get bad echo. So they go to the graveyard and things like that. Things like this happen, And of course, animal sacrifice you have, you see. You know that today also people kill the cows, the chickens, the pigs in order to offer to their gods, to make the gods happy, and the gods will grant them their wishes. Of course we know that it's terrible. It is superstitious belief, has no basis, and it is an unwholesome action to kill. The gods actually don't require all this from you. They are gods, they can have all that they want, isn't it, in heaven. But anyway, that was the belief. And to give you an idea of human sacrifice, so I've put in two images here. Now that actually happened those days, and probably today also we might have these sort of things, or to catch hold of a human, or more often now animals, right? But human sacrifice also took place. Then they would have their chanting or their, celebration, beating the drums and so on. So these two pictures give you an idea of human sacrifice. So that was what the tribal man wanted to do to the king. Wow, the king was very scared. No soldiers around to help him. So he began to plead to the tribal chief, the head of the tribes. He said, please, release me. I'm the king, I'm the king. But the tribal chief and the tribal man did not understand the language of the king. They have their own tribal language that you don't understand, and the king in the kingdom, or the citizens, all they will speak a different language, isn't it? This is maybe, certain Sakai or what, use their own language, the Orang Asli or things like that. So that was what happened. So now it's getting exciting. You'll be wondering, did the king die? Now let us go on to slide number 7. So they started playing drums happily, celebration, like a religious festival. Now you can see the image, singing their songs and then playing the drums and other instruments or what. The king was brought to bed and then dressed in new clothes. So they had their ritual ceremonies. They have to clean the king, bathe the king, and then after that would dress and decorate the body. They even put a garland of flowers around the king's neck. And that was their religious cultural belief. Right? So must have proper preparation to sacrifice this human being to the god. They will kill the person to sacrifice. So actually the king, I think also maybe was very, very scared, fearful, his life in danger, he will probably die, isn't it? So actually the king was being prepared to be sacrificed to their deity or god. That's what they were doing. Why did they bathe the king and then dress him and so on? So this shows image, a cartoon image of a sacrifice. They will kill the person. Probably before some sacrifice, they will strip the person naked first, or maybe just wear a loincloth, whatever. The thing is to kill, and then they will do their own type of shouting or chanting or singing, all this. Ask the god to bless them. That's our practice. So, did the king die? We have to move on to slide number 8 now. So, just when they were about to kill the king, the head of the tribe was there to witness the whole thing. Of course, he had the other tribal men to carry out all the things. His job was to witness the ceremony, right? And then to give any command necessary. So, just when they were about to kill the king, the head of the tribal man, the head of the tribe, saw that one toe from one of the king's feet had been cut off. You can see the image here. Image here, only 4 toes on one of the feet. So, he was shocked. Then when he saw this, what happened? Seeing this, the tribal chief ordered all the drums to be stopped. Stop. Stop all the drums and all your instruments. And stop the killing. And then the the head of the tribe, the most powerful, the chief, so everybody got to listen to him. So he said, you cannot kill this man. This man cannot be sacrificed to our God because he's incomplete. Why incomplete? You all did not notice that one of his toes is missing. Missing, not there. So it's not complete, and the God will be very angry if he's offer this man as sacrifice to him, to the God lah. Incomplete, imperfect man. Cannot. So, have to set him free. So that's why they were afraid lah. Incomplete human, you sacrifice, the deity will become angry and can attack or cause some terrible forces of nature to befall the tribe, like a heavy thunderstorm or an earthquake or tremors, all those things. Right. So they decided to set free the king. The king killed Tio Mia. Very, very relieved that he was so near death already. So he still had his horse, so they allow him to be free. So now you can see the king now riding off from that area and he was finding his way. Actually, he could find the way matter of time. So comes to this point, right? So now let us move on to slide number 9 now. That's slide number 9. So the king was very happy. Happily, the king returned to his palace. And at the palace, this picture shows the king happily returned to his palace. He found his way eventually. And then when he reached the palace, after being tended to by his servants, attendants, and so on, then after having probably taken his bath also and things like that, then he was thinking to himself, wow, if the one toe of my foot had not been cut off, then those tribal men would have killed me. They would have killed me to offer to their God, Luckily, I had this missing toe. Luckily, the toe was chopped off. Otherwise, mati already. And see, my minister was right, He was thinking about his minister. Where is the minister now? In jail, So he was thinking of that. This picture shows it. The king was thinking of the minister. So the minister was right, He said, whatever happens, happens for good. Isn't that true? Something happened to my toe was cut off. I thought it was a terrible thing, but luckily the toe was cut off. Otherwise, I would have been sacrificed. I would have died. So he said, wow, this minister really has wisdom. So then he ordered, you can see here the king, ordered the soldiers to get the minister out of the jail. And then when the minister came out, the king gave back his minister's position, chief minister, the head of the various ministers. I say, now you can serve the kingdom and me back, right? And the king just talked to him, right? He said, minister, my toe was cut off, and you told me that this happened for my good. And actually, it was very, very true. Very, very true, isn't it? So let's see what happens next between the king and the minister. So now we go on to number 10. So this shows the conversation between the king with the missing toe and the minister freed from the jail already. In fact, in a way, the minister had the great wisdom to say this, whatever happens, happens for good, right? So then the king continued speaking to the minister. I have understood this now, right? The cutting of my toe happened for my good. So he understood, he realized if not for the cutting of his toe, the missing toe in his foot, he would not be here already. He would have died, sacrificed to the God of the tribal people in the forest, you see. But then the king continued to ask, but tell me, minister, 2 months, you had to suffer so much in jail. I sentenced you to jail because you said those things. I was very angry that time. All right. Then 2 months, of course, the wound healed already. Then you went hunting, remember? Say 2 months you had to suffer so much in jail. Yet you accepted this so well, so peaceful, and saying whatever happens, happens for good. It's very, very surprising, though. So actually the king wanted him to do some explanation, right? So the minister smiled, full of meta one, this minister with wisdom, And then he said, my lord. He could have said, your majesty also, or we could say, Tuan, whatever language he was in India, probably they use their own language. But anyway, my lord, he said, I was your minister. And I used to be always with you. I'm supposed to be the chief of the ministers, so I have to accompany you most of the time with you, right? Except maybe during the taking bath and during the sleeping lah. Other times, you will always be there to accompany the king, So had I not been in jail, if I were not in jail, then I would have been with you that day, isn't it? He would accompany often, usually he would accompany in the hunting also. Then I would have been with you that day when you went hunting. And the tribal man let you go free because they saw that your foot had a missing toe, not complete. So that you were set free. Right? So he analyzed the situation for the king. So let's see what is next. How he explained further. But Lord, the minister continued, after seeing your toe was missing, and I always accompanying you, right? Isn't it? So the tribal man would definitely have turned to me. He couldn't offer you for human sacrifice. So they'll say, this one minister also dressed very, very well, like a royal person. Unlike soldiers, soldiers are lower class, this king and ministers are higher class. So the tribal men would turn to me and they would take me, and my body complete. They will examine. I have all the organs intact. I don't have a missing toe. So if I was with you, they would have definitely sacrificed me to their God. I would have died. That's why it was good that I was not with you that day. I was in jail. Right? That's why when I was sentenced to jail, I said, whatever happens, happens for good. Because I was in jail, and this saved my life, Just as your missing toe saved your life. I was safe because I was in jail. You were safe because you had a missing toe. So you see, my Lord, whatever happens, happens for good. Very much, a lot of wisdom there. We will examine these afterwards in the discussion on the Dharma lessons, isn't it? So the king was very happy with the chief minister, probably gave him a bigger salary or reward, all right? So everything ended well. So that basically is the essence of the story. There have been various versions. Ajahn Brahm also told one version of the king with the missing finger, something of that sort, the missing finger. So I have put in, right, 2 quotations, very meaningful. Whatever happens, happens for our own good. How would you know? It could be a blessing in disguise, what they call it, right? Sometimes you think it's not good, but then in the end, it turns out to be something very good that could save your life, like this story. And another quotation, don't lose hope. Everything happens for a reason. Nothing happens by chance. It happens for a reason. You never know what tomorrow may bring. Exactly. You don't know what is ahead. Finally, what would happen? Even though what you encounter at the moment seems to be terrible. But anyway, more of this when we look at the we are going to look at the Dharma lessons that we can learn. Very good, important Dharma teachings that will make our mind strong, that will, build up our character and improve our qualities like patience and so on. Many good things that we can learn from this story. So that's why I say the last slide, which is slide number 12, will be the most important slide, right? So I hope you have understood the story of the king with the missing toe. A story for you to reflect and learn important lessons. Of course, the original version which I got from the internet had a different title, so I got the story from there and then edited the text and so on, and then changed a bit here and there, and then after that I decided to put a title like this. I changed many times the title. Finally, I settled for this title, The King with the Missing Toe, right? Raja dengan, what do you call it? Jari kaki kehilangan. Raja kehilangan kaki, jari kaki lah, something like that. You could read the Malay version. So there was this thing, quite interesting story I find, because it teaches many good life lessons and also Dhamma. So now let us go on to the final slide where I will spend more than 20 minutes on the discussion. So let us go ahead. So this, as I say, is the most important slide because it contains the Dhamma for us to learn. The Dhamma lessons, or you want to call it life lessons, moral lessons, or whatever, right? Now, of course, the background you can see, the king having the conversation with the chief minister. I can say the head of the ministers in the court lah. So, pengajaran Dhamma untuk belajar. Now, let us look at the first of the Dhamma lessons. Oh, this has gone to the previous one. I got a mistake now. So I should go to the, so that's the first Dhamma lesson. Okay. There is uncertainty in life. No one can know the future. Now, once you know this principle, then you find many things can change in your attitude, your way of seeing it. Nobody can be certain what is to come, right? And nobody can really know what the future holds for you or even for the world. People can do their predictions, all these just guesses, sometimes intelligent guesses, sometimes come true, sometimes don't come true, just like weather forecast, right? They do give some pointers, but not 100% certain. That is the principle. You think about it, isn't it true? It's very true. So, of course, you can say, hey, but then there are some fortune tellers or, astrologers or palmists and so on that predict something and it happens. Of course, there are various reasons. One is they actually reading your minds, right? That you have certain tendencies in the mind, so they could tell some psychic powers. But again, that is not certain, It's a tendency that it may happen, likely to happen, but also there's an uncertainty because we can change it with our mind, you see. So this is a very important principle, that the only certainty is uncertainty. That's a very interesting thing, isn't it? Only uncertain. So sometimes we worry unnecessarily. So you say, oh, this one is going to happen to my son or my daughter, my wife, my husband, because he's like that, he's sick and so on. No, you don't know for sure. Even people who suffer from cancer, and the doctor says that, oh, he has only 3 months to live. There are some through the mind power or through some other reasons, recover and live for another 5 years. So you cannot be certain. Even doctors, all this, of course, they just look at the scientific evidence and so on. So likely to happen that you die in 3 months or 6 months. But again, there is always uncertainty, isn't it? When no one will know when he's going to die, really. Right? Some people say, I know I'm going to commit suicide at a particular time, at a particular day. But then you heard of cases also the suicide pill, the suicide pill, somebody saved the fella, or the fella took in some sleeping tablets, and then people ship him to the hospital, and they flush out all the terrible toxic chemicals in the body, and then he survived. So still uncertain, right? So when people tell you, I know your future. I can predict in how many years' time you are going to face with a terrible sickness. Don't believe all those things. You believe it, and your mind causes it to happen. I've already mentioned, I have no time to tell you actual cases where people believe that thing, and the thing happens. Right? So it's your mind creating that thing. You see. So Buddhists are not encouraged to consult these fortune tellers astrologers feng shui and all this. Your life is in your hands. I just did a presentation or something like that. You chart your own destiny. Your life is in your hands. It's not fated, right? And then it'll be futile and waste of money. Some get cheated, they spend so much money consulting this, whereas nothing is certain. And you can actually take charge of your life. You do certain things, so more likely these things can happen in the future. A little on we discuss this Dhamma teaching. So there was this saying, the future is uncertain, really. The only certainty is uncertainty, right? Actually, in science, we study one, this Professor Heisenberg gave the principle called the uncertainty principle. Very interesting in science also, uncertainty principle. So this is the first of the 4 Dharma lessons that you have to learn. So when you reflect again, then in your life also you know that nothing is really certain. I have a lot of money and wealth, but I cannot be sure that this will be with me always. Robbers can come and rob, or there might be a natural disaster and wipe out my possessions, even my house also can runtuh, isn't it? And then you say, wow, I really love my son or daughter or my wife or my husband or my father, mother, and so on. So maybe you, of course, expect your son to grow up, right? And then you would pass away first. That's general trend. Older people die first, isn't it? But again, not certain. You have children, young men, young women die early also, isn't it? Through so many possible causes like accidents, terminal disease, cancers, or AIDS, and many other possibility. And nowadays, some are even die in the sleep. Something wrong with the heart, probably not discovered. So go to sleep and then never get up already. It's terrible tragedy to the family members left behind, and they're very young. So when you think about this, you reflect, then you say, there are certain things I have to do. We will look at this later, right? Another Dharma lesson. So wisdom will arise. So if so uncertain, then you would not grasp or cling on to the thing so much. It can be taken away from you. That's a fact. It can be separated, all those things. Now let us go on to the second one. A happening in your life, ultimately. Ultimately means finally. Good or bad? Who knows? As Ajahn Brahm has written a book, very, very interesting book. Good or bad? Who knows? He has also given talks along this line. I learned a lot from that book also, which means that as this story tells you very clearly, something happens in your life. All sorts of experiences, events, and happenings in our lives, isn't it? And some of them are positive, some of them are negative. Positive means, well, they give you some pleasure, happiness, temporary. And then some are sad experiences, even some pain. And then many people cannot accept good ones. They smile and they jump and then they are very happy. But they will pass. These things will pass. And then, but sad things they cannot accept. They will say, why me? Why me? Why should it happen to me? Why should the accident happen to me? Why should this sickness happen to me? But the interesting question is, why not you? Should be another person. There are reasons. We will look afterwards at the other points about the possible reasons. So the important message here is good, bad. If something happens, good, bad, you cannot be sure in the end, I have taught students, for example, right? They expect to get all A's, but somehow or other something happens, they did not get all A's. Maybe they missed 2 and they didn't get A's. And because of that, they could not get a certain course at the university. There were some who aspired to become doctors, but they couldn't get a place because no straight A's. Not easy to get a place. So they were very, very sad. They said, wow, so terrible. Why should it happen to me? Then I'll tell them, you have to accept. Who knows what will happen in the future? Good, bad, is it good, is it bad? You don't know. And true enough, there were a few cases that I thought in the end, because they did not get the medical course, they in the end became even better. Some became very good scientists, right? And also experts in certain field, and later on could lecture to the doctors, I've taught students like that also. So good, bad, who knows? So when you can reflect on this, then you will be more peaceful, you can accept things better. And there were some great people who drop out from university, isn't it? Oh, don't go to university, and other people will say, "Hey, this is terrible. It's a terrible happening." Good, bad, who knows? Right? You find that there were people like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, right? And other very famous people who did not complete their university studies. So you will say it's terrible, it's not good. But in the end, they became even more famous and discover also fantastic things like the Microsoft, the browser Windows or even the internet and so many things So remember this principle. Whatever it is, finally you don't know what is the result of that so-called negative thing that happened to you. It could be for your better, isn't it? You decide. This story tells you, luckily the toe got cut off. So let's say even you fail an exam, you find, wow, your world comes tumbling down. I've taught students like that who did not get very good results for one reason or other, so many possible reasons. But in the end, better. Turned out better. Very successful compared to his classmates who were so-called very successful. Got all A's, but the end now also got a lot of problems with their job. But this person, no. So you see how important is the way we see things. How important is our attitude. Basically, the most important is to understand the Dharma. Right? And then to reflect on it. And then later on, you see to practice it. So this story reflects very clearly happening, good or bad, no one knows. In fact, I gave one story called good or bad also the tragedy, who knows? Just as the story of the Titanic about the family, remember, wanting to go from England to sail in the time 18 something to sail in the big ship to go to America, the land of milk and honey, where they could progress and live very, very well. So family, the Clark family in Scotland, actual story, I gave it, you can check back the video as well as the PowerPoint. So tickets all bought already for the ship. Those days they had those big ships run by steam or things like that. Old-fashioned 18 something, not like the modern ships. So But just a few days or something like that, one of the family members, the son, I think the youngest son, got bitten by a dog, no? And got rabies. Rabies is a very serious sickness, no? And transmitted when you are bitten by a rabid dog, the dog carrying that type of germ or virus or bacteria or what, right? And so cannot go lah. So the whole family could not go. So the father was cursing God, saying, "What, man? So terrible. Everything all settled, taken board. Now my son quarantine, everything, whole family could not go." Then later on, when the ship sailed, without them, the ship sank. It was the Titanic. It's a true story. So good, bad, who knows? For this family. Anyway, that story, you want the details, you follow the presentation. So this is a very important thing. Now let us go on to the next one. Many, many stories they illustrate this point very well. Things happen for a reason, you see. So now let us go on to the next one. Learn to accept peacefully all things that come your way. Yes. Usually we will celebrate, we will jump for joy and be very happy when positive things happen. Try the lottery, all right? And then also maybe get all A's. Of course, it's okay, but you must always bear in mind, these are all temporary things. Nothing is certain of the future. All these things also will pass, you see? So, but when negative things come, well, they cannot accept already, right? Some even commit suicide. Like, so far, I think I also have heard of some students, not my students, I think, right? Where they couldn't get what they want, then they committed suicide, drank insecticide or things like that. It's terrible, isn't it? Because, good, bad, who knows? Because of your failure, then a greater success comes. You see it? So you cannot be sure. So if you are able to accept all things peacefully, you say, well, there could be reasons. And one of it we shall see in the last slide. Then your mind becomes wiser and you could accept the thing peacefully. And people who think, wow, good things happen, wow, very, very lucky everything. But then good, bad, who knows? You don't know, right? The first struck the lottery, wow, 400,000 or something like that. And because of that, the son got kidnapped. And then the thing, didn't work out properly. The ransom is on, the son was killed. So it's terrible. Celebrating the 400,000 win, and then a tragedy come. So good, bad, who knows? So very, very, so if you are able to accept things peacefully, and then when you accept when you have the positive happenings, you also must bear in mind you have the wisdom, right? Clear thinking. And be careful also, as you see this case, right? As a person, maybe gambles and wins a lot in the casino, wow, maybe a few 100,000 celebrating, but on the way back, people rob him and kill him off. So we don't know for sure. So you think of this, whatever happening, you can't be sure. So if you can accept the thing more peacefully and with wisdom, even if you win, then you have in your mind, well, this is okay, but then I have to be careful. Nothing lasts, and so on. How to make sure the thing can be longer or more things can happen good on that. Then we'll come to the last slide. So this is something you have to think very well. I've known of people, right, who because of the learning, understanding, reflecting, and practicing the Dhamma, they can accept many things very well. You see, and that is very, very good, isn't it? They'll be more peaceful. Whereas if we cannot accept those things, these things happen for a cause, and we will see the possible causes. And if we are not able to accept the thing peacefully, then a lot of suffering will come. For example, today, you have so many cases of psychiatric illnesses. People suffer from stress-related sicknesses like depression or neurosis and many others, because they are not able to accept the things and they have the wrong view. right? The wrong view of things. That's why Dharma is so important, right? So you find that they cannot accept the thing happens to them, right? Then they suffer lah. So this story gives us a lot of pointers to wise attitudes. Our views have to be right. And in fact, to sum up in the sense that the most important thing is actually learning the Dharma properly, the true Dharma properly, reflecting on it, understanding it, and then you have to practice according to the teachings. That's the most important point. Now, when we learn to accept, how to learn to accept things peacefully, people may wonder, you say, yeah, it is so easy, right? But then, yes, good things don't come so easily, right? You don't put in the effort, no pain, no gain. So in order to have this ability to accept things peacefully, whatever things come, you have to put in the effort to cultivate yourself, to grow in wisdom through learning the Dhamma, so your mind understand things better, understand things as they truly are, and not as what you think or what you have been taught or what you have been brainwashed or what traditions tell you. Just as you know, the story, sacrificing. And today we still have people like that, right? They are very afraid that if anything negative happens to them. Yeah, most of us are. But then the sad thing is they do the wrong things in order to be blessed by the God. Burning lots of papers, offer food, want to makan suap. You think the gods can be bribed, man? So it's the wrong way, but they want the blessings. That's okay, you want the blessings, but you must use the wise, proper ways. So now let us go on to the last slide. No, not last slide. The last Dhamma lesson. The ripening of a karma is one cause for one's good experience or bad experience. Now, people usually ask the question, why is it that some people experience good things, good experiences, others are not? Right? Some people, so very healthy, others so very sickly, some are, so very intelligent, successful in their studies, others are stupid and so on. Of course, there are various causes. Like, some with the accident, and then you say, oh, that is his will of God, or that's the karma. It's not necessary. So there are many causes. Like, for example, right, if you meet with a negative experience, you fall, kick the stone and then fracture your leg and then say, it's my bad karma. No, it could be because you're not mindful, you're not heedful, you did not pay attention. Your mind was wandering as you walk along the road and you did not see the stone and you kick it. So that was the cause, the lack of mindfulness, right? And then sometimes you say, how come I get this terrible sickness, so painful, going to the toilet diarrhea, 10 times a day, I have to go for the tapian and all this, my bad karma. It's no, because you were careless. You go to the hawkers stalls that are very, very unhygienic and drink the drinks being sold there, and you eat the food that has been attacked by all the various flies, then it's cause and effect. So you cannot every time just say that, it's due to my karma, it's the will of God and all this. It's not that. So we have to take charge of all those things by growing in the wisdom and understanding of things. But sometimes you find, yes, certain things right, happen. Then you find that it's not due to my carelessness, and it's not due to factors like not putting in effort and so on, or taking care and all this. I've done all those things, but yet the thing happens. Like some people, from the young, very, very sickly, right? Even though all the good food, everything all taken care in the family, but the blood just very, very sickly. Some will say, well, due to the genes. But then in the family, why is he the only one? The other ones are not affected. Is it bad luck? No, nothing happens by chance. Right? Remember that? There's a cause. That could be a karmic cause. As I have done some stories that the Buddha talk about the previous karma that caused this vipaka or the results to come up. So that also could be a reason. So karma, right, is one reason for your good or bad experience also. And what is done in the past, you've done some bad things. If it's due to karma in the past, there's nothing you can do, right? But you can actually do good karma, good actions of the mind, the speech, and the body, so that you dilute the bad karma, or you don't have the conditions for the bad karma to ripen, and you will not experience those suffering states. So the wise way will be, if something bad happens to you and you have checked that, oh, all these are cannot explain, but only the karma is the most logical, then what can you do about it? That too will pass. The karma will ripen and break off already, right? But you can do more and more good so that future bad karma will not ripen, or even they ripen, they will be very, very mild, so you don't have so much suffering. That is positive action. So do all the good you can, so that if any bad karma inside the depth of your mind, they have no chance to come out. Or even if they come out, because you have so much of good supportive karma, the effect will be very mild and you suffer very, very little. So that is a wise course of action. It's not that every time you pray, pray, pray. No, praying, according to the Buddha's teaching, all the praying and appeal to the Buddha, or appeal to the God, or whatever angkong you have, is not the correct way. You will not get what you want through that method. It's only through doing all the good of the mind, the speech, and the body. I've mentioned this many, many times already. So, so do all the good you can. That is very important, isn't it? So you see, once we have this Dhamma, our wisdom grows and we will know what to do. So now we have come to the end of this presentation, more than an hour already. Before we say sadhu 3 times, I would like to thank and say sadhu to all the students, the youth members, aunties, uncles, teachers, parents, grandparents, all who follow this presentation, young and old alike. I'd like to say thank you and sadhu for taking time and also spending the energy to follow this long presentation. So sadhu and thank you to all of you. So now let us hold our palms together and say sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. To all of you, may you all be well, happy, peaceful, and healthy. And may the Dhamma be with all of you. Take care.